This is Larry Connors, a trader, author, and quant who co-authored Short-Term Trading Strategies That Work, a book that's been on every quant trader's desk for over 15 years. The strategies he's most famous for were last backtested in 2008, so do they still work today? Well, I went looking for the answer, and I gotta say, what I found surprised me. In this video, I'm gonna code it from scratch using Claude Code, backtest it over 5 years of data, and show you the results of what exactly happened. Now, the strategy we're gonna be focusing on that he actually created is called the Double 7 strategy. There are 3 rules to it, that's it. The 3 rules are very simple. 1, the instrument must be above the 200-day moving average. 2, if it closes at a 7-day low, then we're buying. And then 3, if we're long and it closes at a 7-day high, then we're selling. Overall, 3 really simple conditions that we can easily look for using code, and then we can also prompt. Now, to be clear, there's no stop losses, there's no profit targets, there's not really even any kind of like indicators or kind of custom indicators. So what does this actually look like on a chart? Well, we're buying in the dip of a uptrend and we're selling on the bounce. So for example, this is one of the trades that was outputted from my code. And we can see we're buying on the 7-day low and then we're selling exactly once it gets to the 7-day high. And it's a nice little bounce trade. But how exactly did I actually build this with Claude Code? Well, if you haven't used Claude Code before, don't worry, it's completely beginner friendly. Now, there are 3 ways you can actually use it. You can pick whichever just fits your workflow best. Option 1 is using Claude Desktop. So this is going to be the most beginner friendly, and all you really need to do is go to Claude and download their desktop version, and there will be a code section where you can access Claude Code. Option 2 is through the terminal. So this is what I'd recommend for power users or people that are a bit more used to using a bit of coding. This is probably one of the most powerful versions as well, and it runs right next to your code and edits files directly for you. The desktop version one actually kind of does this now as well, but the terminal is still a cleaner way of doing it. And option 3 is going through an integrated approach, so going through something like Cursor or VS Code. This is where it integrates into your existing editor, and it's normally going to be the same sort of AI or same sort of models, but a different wrapper. Now, the next question is, how exactly did I prompt Claude Code to create a backtest for me? Well, there are normally 2 things that most people get wrong. You can't just say, build me a backtest and expect some clean, amazing code. So I did 2 things that made a massive difference that just took me around 30 seconds or so. Number 1 is style reference code. So I gave Claude my existing backtest scripts as a style reference. So the output could match my approach, and it also can learn from my own correct kind of code that I manually coded and be able to go from there. Now, of course, if you don't know how to code before, you don't necessarily have to write your own code from scratch. You can use other people's code, like template codes that we know that are working, so that Claude can learn from those. Now, number 2 is state the rules extremely clearly. Now, luckily for this particular strategy, there's just 3 rules and they're all in plain English, so they're really easy to understand. But overall, the clearer the prompt, the cleaner the code is normally going to be. Vague prompts often cause hidden bugs or hidden assumptions that the actual AI is going to take for you. So for example, my exact prompt to Claude was, this is 3 rules, systems are very simple. The instrument must be above its 200-day moving average. If the instrument closes at a 7-day low, we're buying. If it had a long position is open and the instrument then closes at a 7-day high, then we're selling. Of course, I added the other reference codes kind of like above it, but at least for what I was prompting for the strategy, that was all I really wrote. Now, this is what Claude gave me back. And this is ideally what you want to see. You don't want a huge backtest code that is completely confusing. Ideally, you'd want it to be kind of modular, and normally you want it to be in audible kind of steps. So as we can see here, it's adding the different indicators, and it's also adding the strategy logic, which is primarily just 2 lines of code. Now, a quick disclaimer, this content is for educational purposes only and isn't investment advice at all. Now, for this next section of the video, Public has actually compensated me to create this demo using their particular data for this particular strategy, but all opinions are expressed on my own, and I have complete freedom of how I really talk about Public. Now, for this particular strategy, as with any backtest, you're going to need data. And in this case, we're going to be using Public's new historical endpoints so that we can pull some historical data and test this strategy over the past 5 years. Another great thing is the trading API is actually completely free to use, and it also does cover stocks, ETFs, options, index options, crypto, and bonds. And primarily, you can query all of this from one endpoint. If you'd like to use it as well, setting it up is really simple. First, you will need a Public account, so you will need to register with Public. But then from there, you just need to generate a secret key. It is normally in your public.com setting page. Make sure to never share the secret key. This is a key that gives people access to your particular Public account, so make sure to never share it. Next, you want to exchange the secret key for an access token. How Public works is using your secret key, you can create an access token that is live for X amount of time. This is a great security measure because then in case one of your access tokens gets leaked or anything like that, it is going to die or cut off at a certain time period. Now, to actually do this, all you have to do is go to their different kind of like endpoints through the API documentation, then go to this personal one that says personal access tokens endpoint, and you pass in your secret key, and it will give you an access token back after you specify how long that access token should last for. Now, number 3 is we're going to pull bar data for any symbol. You can go to the historical endpoint, and you can use the 5-year period to get 5 years of data in different sort of timeframes. The actual endpoint itself, as you can see here, we got a couple of things we can specify in this endpoint. So we have period, which 5 years means it's going to be 5 years of total data. Aggregation, which is going to be the method, so we're going to be using 1 day or daily bars basically. And then for type, we're going to be focused mainly on equities. This will then return full open, high, low, close, and volume bars in the response. One quick note for options: if you do plan to use Public for their options kind of trading, they actually pay you around 6 cents to 10 cents per the contract on options traded via the API. You can also see all their commissions and breakdown using their fee schedule document. I'll leave a link in the description because it's a really useful document. And to be honest, all brokers should have a really nice way for you to understand all the costs that are going to happen. As I mentioned in many videos of mine, understanding costs such as commissions and also slippage are key things that can destroy any strategy. So if you can understand them better from your brokerage and what they're charging you for and what they're not, just makes your live backtesting and also live trading a lot easier. To be clear, the API also does support stocks, ETFs, options, index options, crypto, and bonds. And they also have fractional shares and extended hours up to 16 hours per day. If you want to look through all of the docs, I'll leave a link at public/API/docs for full reference. Now, with my own code, I actually spliced in some of Yahoo Finance data as well. Now, the reason for this is Public currently gives you around 5 years of historical data, which is plenty for most backtests, but because we're using a daily time frame and we're using a 200-day moving average, that means it needs 200 days of data before the backtest can even start. This is something most people miss, especially if they're newer to backtesting. All your indicators need enough data to actually get a correct number. Otherwise, you're going to be creating an indicator using not enough data, and it'll just be giving you a completely random number. So to make full use of Public's 5 years of historical data, I just spliced in some Yahoo Finance data as a warm-up. How that kind of looked like is first we pulled about 1.5 years of Yahoo Finance data as warm-up bars. This helped us calculate all our indicator values first, and then we could move on to that data into the Public API's 5 years of historical data. Now, of course, over time, I bet Public is going to add way more data to the historical endpoint, but as of time of filming this in around the 20th of May, it only has 5 years. But with the rate they are shipping, I bet they're going to add 10 and 15 years very soon. Now that we actually have data to backtest this, what does the actual backtest process look like? Well, I tested it on free ETFs using 100K starting capital with realistic slippage and 0 commissions, as Public actually doesn't charge commissions on the wholesale route during regular trading hours. The free symbols were SPY, QQQ, and Gold. The period was 5 years. And we had a slippage of around 5 pips per side. As I mentioned, Public doesn't charge commissions. And then we had 2 different sizing methods. The reason why I tried 2 different sizing methods is I thought it would be interesting for you guys to see how much sizing can actually change the results of any particular strategy. This strategy is incredibly simple, and it can be incredibly effective as well. But Larry Connors didn't necessarily specify one sizing technique you can use. And by using a bit of special math, the sizing for this particular strategy make the results even better. So first, let's use the basic sizing method. This is called equal sizing or equal sleeves as well. Each symbol basically gets a third of the capital, so $33,333, and that sleeve compounds independently. It is the simplest way to allocate capital, and it's also what most retail traders are probably doing if they're running something across multiple symbols. So here are the initial results. As we can see, the total return was around 49%. We had a 75% average win rate, which is really impressive because in his initial report of this particular strategy, I think it was around a 70% win rate, so it's held up very well since 2008. It had a max drawdown of 16%, which is actually very reasonable. It traded 180 times in total, had an 8-day average hold time, and it had about a 0.58 Sharpe. Now, for people that are maybe new to the space, they're going to hit a 0.58 Sharpe and think, well, that's incredibly low. Shouldn't it be like 2 or 3? Most of the time in most live strategies, especially a strategy that's running on daily or trying to exploit something that's highly inefficient, you're normally going to get about 0.5 to a 1 to maybe 1.5 Sharpe. In crypto, you can maybe definitely get a bit higher, but for the most time on equities and futures, that's normally going to be where your Sharpe ratio is living. Now let's actually see the individual performance based on SPY, QQQ, and Gold. As we can see, QQQ was actually a really steady performer with this particular strategy. SPY and also Gold didn't do too bad either, but overall the indexes were carrying the strategy. If we look at the individual win rates, we can see SPY had a 75 or almost 76% win rate, QQQ had a 71, and then Gold had the highest win rate at around 77%. We can also see the biggest returns really came from QQQ and then also Gold. So at least on initial thoughts, it seems like Connor's strategy from 2008 is still profitable in 2026. The most remarkable thing about this is I have not changed any of the parameter values or added any optimizations to this particular strategy. So in some ways, we can call all of this out of sample data because the initial strategy was optimized around 2008, and ever since then, it's been working quite well. Now, of course, I only tested from 2020, but if we had tested back even further, I bet the results wouldn't have been actually that different. The main reason why is this is a very good basic trend following strategy. It's maybe the not most optimized strategy, but it's been working for a very long time and still got quite commendable results. But what about if we size this using volatility? So equal sleeves treat every symbol the same, but QQQ is way more volatile for the most part than SPY, for example. So the second sizing method scales each trade by the symbol's volatility. So every trade we're risking the same dollar amount, regardless of what instrument it is, so we're sizing it appropriately for how much volatility that particular instrument has. Here's the basic formula, but there are more elaborate ways to do this, but in this particular version, we're just going to be using ATR and then having an ATR stop loss using that volatility. So the risk per trade is going to be $2,000 per trade, and we're going to have a free ATR stop loss at the time of entry. For the ATR value, we're just going to use a standard 20-day rolling average. And as we can see, the results are actually quite a lot better. We got 57% total return, 74% average win rate, so about the same, 15% drawdown, so a bit better than the other one, and most importantly, our Sharpe improved quite a lot to 0.69. So now let's say I want to take this strategy live. How would that actually look? Well, to go from a backtest to a live bot, we can actually use the same API from public. For the most part, we can actually use most of the signals from the backtest to send off a buy order, for example, using public's get or post order mechanism. But this would be a very simple explanation. So let me give you a bit more detail of what would have to change to take your backtest script and turn it into a live algo. Most of the time, there's a lot of things you're maybe not accounting for. So I made a kind of a rough scope guide of if you're translating most backtesting scripts into something that's live. And then in this example, we're kind of using public's API. Now for the first part, authentication, this basically stays the same because we're just authenticating using an access token. For the data fetching, we're going to make a small change here because we want to actually incrementally fetch. We need new data coming in, compared to the backtest, right, where we're just specifying a start and end date. For the indicators, that can basically stay all the same. There's nothing necessarily we're changing. For the bar loop, this definitely does need to get rewritten a bit because we need to loop in new data coming in. For the execution side of things, of course, this is a completely new execution module. We need to add around 5 endpoints. We also want to change how we're storing memory into a persistent JSON so we can have a record of all the trades and all the orders we're going to submit. We also then maybe want some risk and safety features like a kill switch or something like that. And then lastly, instead of reporting a full backtest run, we may want to get a snapshot or currently like what our current positions are or what our exposure is, those sort of things. So to give you something tactical, here are the 5 main changes. First, we need to build a broker module. This is going to wrap public's trading endpoints into clean Python functions. So there are 5 main endpoints we need to wrap. One is get the accounts, so we can actually identify how much cash, equity, or buying power we actually have. We then also want to look at the portfolio to see if there's any current positions, get the real share counts and average cost. We then also want to get the orders so we can see if there's any open orders and what the fill status is on those particular orders, like maybe partial, stuff like that. Then we want to post order, so actually submit a new order when we have a signal. And then lastly, we may want to delete an order if an order wasn't filled for a very long period of time or something like that. 2, we want to replace the bar loop with a scheduler. So instead of fetching basically in a range and checking the signals during those kind of start and end periods, we want to schedule at, for example, the end of day, 1 minute just after close, to run to the day, see if there's any new signals and place real orders. Now, this is one thing to note. There are a couple of different approaches of how you could submit orders for this particular strategy. One approach is you could submit them just before the close, for example, at like 15:55, as that's going to be probably close enough to what the close value is going to be. Another option is let the actual full bar close and then submit that order in after market hours because public does have extended trading hours. The one downside of this, though, is that after hours, of course, is going to be less liquid. So if you're trading, something with a lot of size, you may not get filled as well as you want to be. And then lastly, the most common approach as well is just simply to fill at the next new day's open bar price. The only downside of this is there could obviously be a gap move or things like that. So you have to weigh up which ones are preferable to you. In my opinion, most of the time, just entering just before the close, so about 15:58, is normally going to be totally fine. 3 is we want to trust the broker, not necessarily our code. The biggest difference in a backtest versus an algorithm is in a backtest, you can just set if you're in a position, and if it equals 1, that means a signal has fired and we're now in a position. But on live, you only want to set that you are currently in a position after the brokerage confirms that you are filled on that particular position. So on every run, we want to reconcile and ask public's API, what positions do we currently have? And does any of them disagree with what our code thinks or what we should necessarily be in for a position? And most of the time, our code is going to be wrong, not the brokerage for what positions we have live. We want to treat the brokerage side of things as our source of truth. 4 is we want to persist your state to disk. This is for the cases where maybe your script will crash or your computer dies or anything like that. We want to make sure that we're saving all our data/info into a JSON file. So we know, when did we take a particular order? When was the entry? What was the entry price that we got filled at? All those sort of things. Of course, we can then check these with public as well, but we want to have our own record as well. So we can kind of see that. And then the algo can always have that particular information on hand. 5 is we want to add some safety rails. For example, market hours. So what days are closed? We obviously can't be executing on those particular days or trying to execute. We also maybe want to say that if the script does crash or if anything like that, or after a restart, we want to make sure we're not double submitting orders. So we want to always be checking that we're currently in this particular position and we currently have signals for this particular position. We don't need to resubmit that order. Next is like a kill switch. So auto, killing the particular script if we hit a really bad drawdown or something like that. The next part is logging and alerts, making sure every order, every submission, fill, rejection is being flagged and logged so we can look over those logs before and see maybe what went wrong and then help us debug. Next is rejections and partial fills. This does get a bit more complicated, but for example, what happens if you submit a particular order and you only filled half the amount of size that you wanted to? Does that mean you submit now a stop order with half the amount of size and expect never to get filled on the other half? Or does that mean you cut out the other half now and just assume that you're going to be half filled for this particular order forever? There's a lot of things you have to make there and choices you have to make. One obviously is choice is that if you only get a partial fill, you resubmit again and try and get a full fill. But the bottom line is the signal logic is normally 10% of the actual work. The other 90% is going to be plumbing, reconciling, and things like that most people don't think of when transitioning something from a backtest to a live algo. Now, if you want to actually build this yourself, such as building backtests like this, turning them into live bots, this is exactly what we focus on inside of the Crypto Momentum group. It's a group where I help you build your first live algo in crypto using automation templates and education on how to use AI and around algorithmic trading in general. Link in the description if you want to check it out.